KC Singh, one of India's best known and respected diplomats, Maruf Raza and Subramaniam Swamy. My first question to you, Mr. Swamy. You remember what you said in September, Mr. Swamy. You said that, when you talked of the soft foreign policy, the way we get confused vis-a-vis our neighbors sometimes, Pakistan, and presumably I should have no reason to believe you should have a different approach towards China on essential issues. You said, I don't know why you're smiling, you said that India suffers from the same confusion that Arjun felt on the battlefield in the Mahabharata. So you said the time has now come for us to end that kind of a confusion. You were talking of the government's soft foreign policy. Now we want to see what your government will do vis-a-vis all the transgressions that the Chinese are carrying out repeatedly and systematically on the borders, with the last Chinese transgression being in Chumar. Now, you can't change your position, can you, tonight, Subramaniam Swamy? Or would you like to?
No, there's no question of change of there's no question of change of any position. It is a fact that the Congress party was struck by the Arjuna disease, and Mr. Modi has.
What about your government?
Well, coming to that, now you are asking me to respond to an incident which you have not even verified with the External Affairs Ministry or the Ministry of Defense. You have got none of the official spokesmen of these two ministries.
You're sounding like the last government used to.
Well, I'm saying today that we are now talking about what has happened recently.
So why are you trying to downplay what the Chinese have done in Chumar?
I don't know whether downplay. I don't even know. I can't rely on Mr. Arnab Goswami for factual accuracy.
Really, you don't? So can I give you some
I have
facts
to go by what
government?
my government tells me. Okay. I asked the External Affairs Ministry and the Defense Ministry, and they're saying that whatever you are saying is just an attempt to create bad blood between India and China.
Have they said these pictures which are being put out are lies?
Well, I don't know what these pictures mean, because
there was an attempted
just because they are pictures, I must have a government explanation. The government explanation doesn't support you.
I don't think
as far as India, China is. Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. You say, wait a minute. Subramaniam Swamy, you were up in arms when Salman Khurshid described the Chinese incursions as acne that can be treated with an ointment. Now, I'm asking you tonight, I said on Top of News, our atmospherics are great. Are 334 incursions this year into our territory acne? Is the violation of border defense agreements acne?
I don't know where you get these statistics from. You must be getting it from our enemies.
Sir, these are statistics which are well known. I'm surprised that you don't have
What do you mean well known? I asked the government of India.
Really?
I asked the ministries. They said, these guys, there's no such thing as incursions. They come across and then they go back. Yeah. And if they make a spectacle of having some civilians with banners, then we do the same thing.
So this is
and then afterwards we exchange greetings and separate.
This is what Salman Khurshid used to say.
No, Salman Khurshid, I don't know whether I am not talking about acne and its cure.
No, but
I am talking about what actually happens. You should have taken the trouble to ask the External Affairs Ministry or the Defense Ministry for a reaction, which you have failed to do.
Ministry,
and I can't go by your statistics because you get them so often wrong.
I get no.
Sometimes, yes, I know. On my own matter, you have, in fact, in my own show, you once produced somebody with a tape recording claiming that I had said the Muslims should be cut to pieces. The man later apologized, and you never showed that. Similarly, you said that I'm on Twitter when I was arguing, and I was getting 98% support in Twitter.
First, 1 second. By the way, Subramaniam Swamy, I'm very glad tonight that you find that your support base is not in the real but in the virtual world. That's an interesting
You said it. You said we are on Twitter. Remember, I never talking about the virtual world.
Tonight, let's stay with
the subject. Come on, don't twist.
KC Singh, intruding 19 kilometers into Indian territory is not acne. Pushing troops together with Chinese civilians into Indian territory and asking the Indian army to retreat from the area is not acne. Can we really dismiss what the Chinese are doing strategically from what they might attempt to do economically?
Arnab, there are two parts of it. One is what you were just discussing with Mr. Swamy, that every time somebody is in government, they didn't appear as transgressions, but when they are in opposition, they appear to be so. The reason for that is that the line of actual control in certain areas has got competing versions and conflicting versions. We have our version, they have their version. So that is why it's an unwritten understanding which often falls apart, where you go up to your understanding, they come up to their understanding. So you can technically say that it is not a breach, and yet it is a breach. Now, secondly, is the issue of why it must happen every time there is a high-level visit. You remember in 2006, President Hu Jintao was coming, and 2 weeks before that, the Chinese ambassador claimed the whole of Arunachal Pradesh, which was quite undiplomatic of him. So the Chinese have this habit of asserting their boundary, their claims at the boundary, coinciding with high-level visits, not realizing that it tends to vitiate the atmosphere. Then they will turn around and say it is the Indian media, and the Indian media is told by the Indian government to do it.
Precisely,
whereas
like Subramaniam Swamy is doing.
They will blame the media and they'll say the government is getting it done. So the second element is that, and there are any number of agreements from 1993, 93, 96, 2005 on peace and how to maintain peace and tranquility at the border. I think this needs to be finally settled with the president, with President Xi, because he is fully in charge. In the past, one of the excuses used to be that there are factions within the Chinese government, that the president may not be fully in control of the PLA. Well, this president is fully in control. Everything else. So I think an ascendant Indian leader, Prime Minister Modi, and the president, after the festivities and the birthday celebrations are over, they need to sit down and have a frank talk.
Exactly.
And say we cannot have this kind of behavior, 2 steps forward and then vitiate the atmosphere.
Exactly.
Because we are a democratic country.
But
it kicks off a public furore. It vitiates the atmosphere.
Yeah, but you know, the problem, KC Singh, the problem is, and I'm just coming to Maruf, but Maruf, before I come to you, the problem, just an observation on Subramaniam Swamy, who's getting needlessly provoked tonight. When you remind Subramaniam Swamy that you change your position.
I changed my position. That's ridiculous.
I'll tell you how. I'll tell you how, sir. Please don't get worked up. I'll tell you how.
What do you mean worked up?
I'll tell you how. No, I don't mean, I'm telling don't get worked up. I'll just tell you how, even if it means contradicting you on
yes,
live
Grandpa.
television. Sir, that's all right, sir. Be as sarcastic as you want to. Sir, do you recall what, when the UPA government in September last year, Maruf, UPA government in September last year, when they did all that, took the soft attitude vis-a-vis incursions from China, a person called Subramaniam Swamy at that point of time said if China transgresses into our territory, he had a unique formula. He said we should collaborate with Indonesia to blockade their ships between the Nicobar Islands in India and Sumatra in Indonesia. Subramaniam Swamy said it. Unless it was a different Subramaniam Swamy. Now
I said if.
Now we say walk the talk.
If they transgress, I can't take your word for it.
So what's happened in Demchok? What's happened in Chumar?
Well, you ask the government of India for an official reaction.
Sir,
why are you giving your reaction as the official reaction?
300 Chinese troops who were stationed in Chumar.
That is what you say. The government of India doesn't confirm that.
Well, I have...
And diplomats in office and diplomats on television,
I don't know what,
after retirement, they speak different languages.
I don't know what confirmation you're looking for. Even your own defense minister said in August this year that China had violated the bilateral border defense cooperation agreement and that India had lodged a protest with regard to the same. The Chinese had been warned, but their transgressions continued. Now, that's on the 1st of August from your own defense minister. I'm placing it on record since you say, show me the facts. Maruf, this duality, this double, the double speak. When you're in government, you take a different approach to China. Now, if this is going to be the case, we are never really going to be treated seriously by the Chinese.
Ornab, see, Ornab, let me bring out a couple of facts. Policies that exist in various ministries are not going to turn around and change immediately, despite all the activity that this government has taken on in terms of interacting with heads of state and heads of government across the world in the last 100 days, from P5 countries to the neighbors. They are trying to come on the fast track as far as diplomacy is concerned. Fine. But there is a lot of baggage that is there in terms of approach to China, both in South Bloc and North Bloc. Today, there are 3 ministries that are dealing with China. There is the Foreign Office, which has a larger view about how to deal with China. And I'm sorry to say, much of it is inherited from the Nehruvian legacy of being passive vis-a-vis China since 1962 and the experience thereafter. And that hasn't changed, Ornab, even with the new government. That hasn't changed with the new government. The second thing is the Home Ministry is not completely being able to influence the ITBP to become a little more aggressive. I have got very confirmed reports by people who've been there in the last several months that the ITBP is not even operating on the line that we define as a boundary and not patrolling there effectively enough, but sometimes 20 to 30 kilometers behind that, and their officers even far off in towns like Leh, Srinagar and elsewhere. Thirdly, the Chinese have been, as Mr. K.C. Singh rightly brought out, the Chinese do it every time there is a big visit in India, basically with the blessings of the Politburo as it happened last year, and with the blessings of the Vice Chairman of the CMC as it's happening in August. These are recorded information that's available on the media. I'm not shooting off the top of my head. Now, what we need to do is, we need to A, get our act together, B, need to do a perception management change with the vis-a-vis the Chinese, 3, become a little more assertive on the ground about our claim line. None of that has been happening with this government. This government is right now too busy interacting with leaders in world capitals. The reality on the border has not been addressed. It will take time.
It's this kind of dodging attitude which I find completely confounding. I mean, any number of data now you put before this government, so we don't believe it. Subramaniam Swamy comes on television and says, you're making things up, I don't believe what you're saying. There is no proof of what he's saying. Subramaniam Swamy knows more than anyone else that what I am putting out is government data. 334 transgressions by PLA troops is something that Kiran Raiju, the junior Home Minister, has said. 334 cases take place until August 4th, only until August 4th. Now Subramaniam Swamy won't even believe that. No. What do you mean? What do you mean, Subramaniam? These are governments.
Crossing the boundary, of course we know that, but they don't stay there. They don't put up their tents.
So you are permitted.
They don't occupy it.
This is the
they
problem.
They go back
Maruf,
when we point out to them.
You see, Maruf, this is the problem. This is the problem. They cross into hundreds of PLA soldiers can cross in and walk into.
The Home Minister said we also cross into their territory.
The approach.
Please, how did you get this?
The approach
how did you suddenly become Subramaniam Swamy so utterly tolerant of the Chinese army?
Has not changed by the government of India in this government.
And
the approach vis-a-vis the Chinese has not changed with this new government. Our approach is still very accommodative, as against not an inch of movement on the LOC vis-a-vis the Pakistanis.
And the expectation.
Here, we are willing to be flexible. We don't want situations to escalate. Only 2 incidents since the 62 war, in Nathula in 67, Samdrangchu 87, when the army gave them a befitting response to their intrusions, that the Chinese realized that the Indian response would be disproportionate to what they are trying to do. We have to raise the ante. We have to tell them that we are not willing to accept any more muscle flexing. This is the message that the Chinese president has given out to the world, that they are going to be uncompromising on the Chinese border and territorial disputes vis-a-vis China, vis-a-vis Japan, vis-a-vis Vietnam, vis-a-vis India. And we have to now define trade with India cannot be in isolation of unsettled boundaries.
If we were tolerant, we would not be meeting Japanese and making an agreement with them. We wouldn't be meeting the Vietnamese.
No.
We would not be. We would
Subramaniam Swamy, don't tell me about Japan.
Sri Lankans, please go easy on the Chinese.
Mr. Swamy,
don't give them so much access.
Let me quickly counter you on that. I'm sorry, but let me quickly counter you on that. And I'd like Casey to come in on this. Don't keep telling us what was said in Japan. The fact is, the fact is that you have one position in Japan and another in India vis-a-vis the Chinese. Now, that's a climb down, Mr. Swamy. Modi was referring...
No question of any climb down. This is your imagination.
Sir,
China and Japan relations are very bad.
Sir,
we chose to go to Japan first.
Mr. Swamy, please hear me.
The Prime Minister chose to go there first. We have now reached an agreement on deep sea fishing with the Vietnamese.
Mr. Swamy, I know unless you want to believe otherwise, that Modi was referring to China when he said in Japan that those who follow the path of Buddha, let me complete, and have faith in Vikasvad, they develop, those having ideas of the 18th century engage in encroachments and enter seas. That approach must change. So my question is very simple. You are obviously referring to Chinese expansionism in the South China Sea. I am asking you about Chinese expansionism in Ladakh. I am asking you about Chinese expansionism, incursions in Ladakh, in Demchok, the kind of expansionism that you stood against.
What do you mean? Have they occupied any fresh territory in Ladakh?
Have they not?
Do you have any evidence of that?
Are they not attempting to?
No, the government of India does not acknowledge that there is any fresh territory that China has occupied.
Sir,
they come across, go back again.
Sir, I don't.
That is what happens.
I don't know. So I'll tell you.
You don't know. That's
sir,
because you have not.
No,
you
Mr.
don't take the trouble to ask the ministries, the two ministries, to make a statement on all your videos that you put out.
With the greatest of respect, I believe that your government will not put out lies. Unofficially, a senior Home Ministry official has said 334 transgressions reported.
Transgressions is different from occupation.
So you tell me transgressions
you are
is
saying
okay.
Expansion. Don't use these words interchangeably.
So you are saying
this is diplomacy.
So you are saying, Subramaniam Swami, transgressions are okay.
I never said transgressions are okay.
Why
if they stayed there and set up their tents and cantonment, it is not okay. If they went back, then it's okay.
Sir, it was not okay.
Because as the ambassador said, the lines are not drawn.
Sir,
we don't know which is where.
Sir, this is exactly, your government stand on China on strategic issues is then no different from your predecessor. To both the UPA and the NDA, the problem is of perception, not a violation of our territory. But most Indians will believe that a transgression...
I don't know about most Indians.
Most Indians...
You speak on most Indians and it turns out that you are in a minority.
You want to put it to the test? You want to ask people...
Yeah, you did it last time on Twitter.
So let's,
and you were beaten hollow.
Mr. Swami, I'm sure you will get your votes and your supporters on Twitter to go berserk on this issue.
But you quoted the Twitter. I did not quote the Twitter.
You're on Twitter. I'm not Mr. Subramaniam Swami. Now let's get over
but you
Twitter.
Quoted it on your program.
That's all right, Mr. Twitter. You want to
remember, you're on Twitter.
I'm
That's
saying
what you said.
KC Singh. Transgressions are not serious. Transgressions by the army are not serious. Transgressions by the People's Liberation Army are not serious. How can you say that, Mr. Swami? I mean, I find it confounding that you say that. KC Singh.
See, this government has been in power for almost 4 months now. We don't have a full-time defense minister. We have a part-time defense minister, and the defense minister has also been unwell. We do not have special representative named by this government to talk to China about the boundary issue. It's 4 months. Now, a special representative should have been named straight away, because after all, Prime Minister had already had a meeting with the President on the sidelines of BRICS. Now, you have to convey to the Chinese that you're very serious on the defense side, you're very serious about settling the border issue, picking up the thread where it has been left by the last government, and the drift which had come about. The agreement on political guidelines and the parameters for settling the boundary was done in 2005. It's 9 years. It shouldn't take 9 years to start implementing the guidelines and the principles. So this government, if it is proactive, it should have a full-time defense minister, SR special representative appointed, and to force the Chinese to recognize that we want this issue out of the way. They cannot do this, that they keep it lingering, hold the dagger at your head, and then keep saying that open your economy to us.
I am worried with this approach, with this increasingly tolerant approach which Mr. Subramaniam Swami is exhibiting on the Newshour tonight. He will say it's even all right if China helps Pakistan with a few more nuclear designs. It's all right. He'll say it goes back right up to the 70s. What if they they do a little bit more nuclear proliferation with the Chinese?
Making these allegations, I'll make allegations against you.
Sir, I'm saying
depends on which country you are now playing the tune to spoil relations between India and China.
I am only saying, Mr. Swami, that you can't be so trusting on the Chinese.
So how can you say something so absurd?
So
I would say that it's all right if China gave nuclear weapons to Pakistan.
I'm sure you would say that's not all right.
Oh yeah, you would sure. I'm sure that you must be working asking for some foreign country to spoil our relations with China.
Mr. Swami, some of the things which you say is water off a duck's back for me. We've been debating for a long time. I don't fall for your provocation. My question is very simple. You put this question to the test tonight, Subramaniam Swami. Ask everyone, including your followers on Twitter, whether transgression by the People's Liberation Army in any form, whether they settle permanently or not or come in or out, is acceptable, and the resounding answer will be no. Mr. Swami, will be allowed.
Once the line is drawn clearly, it is unacceptable. It is in the very beginning the ambassador said exactly that. You didn't pay attention.
You can't.
After all, unless you know. You can't. This is the established line. They won't cross it. Well, we don't have any crossings across the Macron line.
Okay, then why do you even call them transgressions if you're not even sure? If you're not even sure of the...
You have called it transgressions.
Your government calls it transgressions, and they are transgressions.
Because we say this is our line.
Sir,
but there is no treaty on that.
Mr. Swami, why don't you check, what the Indo-Tibetan border police
I would like you to check by asking our ministry. Whether what you're putting out as propaganda in your channel has any validity.
Why don't you just ask your government, what Kiran Raiju said about the number of transgressions that had taken place till the 4th of August, you'll get a clear answer.
Of course, they cross out. They cross. I have already admitted
in fact,
but I didn't say that. I said they don't put up tents and
they even said
they don't claim the territory.
In fact, they even said that there's a likelihood of the 2014 figure of transgressions, sir, surpassing the level seen in 2013 and 2012. So unacceptable, sir.
As long as they go back, it is acceptable.
Well, we put this question to the test. The PLA can come in, transgress into our land as long as they go back, says Subramaniam
Because
Swami.
we will do the same.
Well, Mr.
And we
Swami,
are doing the same.
We put this to the test. Now we'll move to debate number 2. Thank you. KC Singh wants to say something very quickly at the end. 1 second. KC Singh, yes, please go ahead.
I said, why don't we get Mr. Swami as the defense minister? He could probably give us a clearer answer then, yeah?
Well, the
Chinese won't dare to come across.
The present defense minister has himself made a statement on that subject to the... Well, Subramaniam Swami seems to
then
be...
Then it is retaliation.
Subramaniam Swami has changed his position on China. Maruf Raza,
I have not changed my position. I am a scholar of China, unlike you.
Sir, that doesn't mean you agree with the wrongs that the Chinese do, and you change your position from what you said in September.
Yes,
Maruf, very quickly.
It might please you to hear what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But there has, to be fair to our officials in the government, there has been now a slow and steady change in our approach to China. We have begun to become a little more aggressive. We are raising a strike corps. We have started doing up airfields along the Chinese border. And we are trying to build more roads. There are 73 roads required along the Chinese border.
In Chumar, there is a road construction.
But there's a resource crunch. But overall, we need to fast track our ability to convey to China that we can hit them in a short, sharp conflict a manner disproportionate to the aggravation they are causing to us. That perception management hasn't taken place.
Well, we hope it will. Thank you very much for joining me on debate number 1 on the Newshour tonight.